Captain Taesung stood at the observation window of Luna Base 7, watching Earth rotate slowly below. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from here, thousands of kilometers away. He had been stationed on the moon for 3 years now, monitoring space traffic and watching for asteroids. It was supposed to be a quiet job. That morning started like any other. Taesung drank his coffee and read reports from the night shift. Nothing unusual. A few satellites needed adjustment. Some space debris passed through the outer warning zone. Normal things. Then the alarm started screaming. Every sensor on the base went crazy at once. Taesung ran to the main control room. His crew was already there, staring at their screens with wide eyes. On the displays, dozens of massive objects were appearing out of nowhere. Ships. Enormous ships. They were bigger than anything humanity had ever built. Where did they come from? Taesung demanded. Unknown, sir, replied his sensor operator. They just appeared. No warning. No heat signatures, nothing. Taesung felt his stomach drop. These weren't human ships. Everyone knew what this meant. For years, scientists had debated whether aliens existed. Now they had their answer back on Earth. Dr. Hana was working late at her lab in Tokyo. She studied communication systems and signal patterns. Her computer suddenly picked up a transmission from orbit. The signal was strong, clear, and definitely not human. Her hands shook as she recorded it. The message repeated over and over in a pattern she could recognize. It took her 20 minutes to crack the basic structure. When she translated the first few words, her blood went cold. Submit for processing. Resistance equals extinction. The message was a demand. Not a greeting. Not an introduction. A demand for surrender. Hana immediately called the Japanese Space Agency. Within minutes, governments around the world were receiving the same translation. The alien ships were hanging in orbit, waiting. In Seoul, a factory worker named Jun was finishing his shift. He stepped outside into the evening air, ready to go home to his small apartment. The sky looked strange. Jun stopped walking and stared upward. There were lights in the sky. Not stars. Not airplanes. Massive glowing shapes that blocked out the stars. They hung there, silent and terrifying. Other people on the street were stopping too, pointing up, pulling out their phones. Then the lights came down. Brilliant beams of blue energy shot from the alien ships to the ground. They hit major cities all over Earth at the exact same time. Tokyo, New York, London, Moscow, Lagos, Shanghai, Seoul, but these weren't weapons meant to destroy. When the beams hit, all the electricity went out. Cars stopped moving. Phones went dead. Everything electronic just stopped working. The cities went dark. Jun fell to his knees as the beam passed over his neighborhood. His phone was dead. The streetlights were out. Car alarms had stopped mid-sound. Everything was silent. Then the collection began. Smaller ships descended from the massive vessels in orbit. They moved through the dark cities with searchlights, scanning crowds of people. When the lights touched someone, that person started floating upward. Men, women, children, thousands of people rising into the air, pulled by invisible forces toward the waiting ships. Jun watched in horror as his coworkers floated past him, their arms and legs moving slowly like they were swimming through water. Their mouths were open, screaming, but no sound seemed to reach him. He tried to run, but the blue light found him too. His feet left the ground. Jun felt the terrible sensation of rising higher and higher. The street below became small. The city spread out beneath him like a map. All around, thousands of other people were floating upward in streams of blue light, all being pulled toward the belly of an enormous ship. High above, in an elite military base hidden in the mountains, Yuna received the emergency call. She was a special forces operative trained for impossible missions. But nothing had prepared her for this. All units report immediately, the commander's voice cracked over the emergency radio. We are under alien attack. This is not a drill. Yuna grabbed her gear and ran to the briefing room. Dozens of other soldiers were already there, their faces tight with fear and determination. The commander showed them footage from around the world. Cities going dark. People being taken. Ships landing and setting up what looked like processing centers. Our orders are simple, the commander said. Rescue and resist. We don't know what they want, but we're not going to make it easy for them. Yuna and her team were sent to Seoul. By the time they arrived, the aliens had set up a massive facility in the center of the city. It looked like a metal fortress that had grown out of the ground overnight. Thousands of people were being herded inside by floating machines. The aliens themselves were tall, thin creatures with gray skin and large dark eyes. They moved efficiently, like workers performing a familiar task. They didn't speak. They didn't seem cruel or angry. They were just collecting humans like farmers harvesting crops on Luna Base 7. Taesung watched helplessly as Earth was attacked. His crew wanted to do something, anything, but they only had 2 small patrol ships. What could they do against an alien fleet? Then one of the alien ships broke away from Earth and headed toward the moon base. Taesung realized they were going to take his crew too. He made a decision quickly. "Everyone into the patrol ships," he ordered. "We're not waiting here to be collected." "Where will we go?" asked his second officer. "Anywhere but here. We'll hide in the asteroid belt. We'll survive. And we'll figure out how to fight back." As Taesung's small ships fled into the darkness of space, he took one last look at Earth. The beautiful blue planet was surrounded by alien vessels like a wolf pack around wounded prey. Billions of people lived down there. His family. His friends. Everyone he had ever known. The aliens had made a terrible mistake coming to Earth. They thought humans were weak because they fought among themselves. They thought a divided species would be easy to conquer. They didn't understand that humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years because they were good at fighting. Very good. And when an outside threat appeared, all those old conflicts suddenly didn't matter anymore. Taesung gripped the controls of his ship and flew into the dark. He didn't know how they would fight back against such powerful enemies. But he knew one thing for certain: humanity would never stop trying. Down on Earth. Inside an alien processing facility, June was strapped to a cold metal table. Strange machines surrounded him, making clicking sounds. An alien stood over him, looking down with those huge dark eyes. It reached toward his head with a device that glowed with blue light. June struggled against the straps but couldn't move. The device touched his temple. Pain shot through his skull. Then everything went dark. When June woke up, he was standing in a line with hundreds of other humans. They were all walking forward slowly, not talking, not looking at each other. Like robots? Like slaves, but June's mind was still his own. Whatever the aliens had tried to do to him hadn't worked completely. He could still think. He could still plan. He kept his face blank and followed the line, pretending to be broken like the others. The aliens had wanted slaves. They had come to Earth expecting an easy harvest, but they had caught a tiger by the tail. And very soon that tiger was going to bite back. 3 days had passed since the aliens arrived. 3 days of darkness, chaos, and terror. But something unexpected was happening. Something the aliens didn't anticipate. Humanity was waking up. In a hidden military bunker deep beneath the Swiss Alps. Representatives from every major nation gathered. For the first time in history, old enemies sat at the same table without arguing. American generals worked beside Russian commanders. Chinese strategists shared plans with Indian officers. North and South Korean leaders coordinated without hesitation. Colonel Day 1 stood at the head of the table. He had lost his wife and 2 children in the first wave. His eyes were hard now, like stones, but his mind was sharp. "We have 3 advantages," he said, pointing to a map on the screen. "First, they didn't destroy our infrastructure. They need it intact. Second, they're overconfident. They're treating this like a simple harvest operation. Third, we're still here. Millions were taken, but billions remain." A general from Germany raised his hand. "What can we do?" "Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours." "Technology isn't everything," Day 1 replied. "They have better tools. But we have something they don't. We have the will to die for our freedom." "I don't think they do." In Tokyo, Dr. Hana was working around the clock in a makeshift laboratory. The power was back on in some areas now. The aliens had restored electricity to the parts of cities they controlled. They needed power for their processing centers. Hana had collected data from every alien transmission she could find. She was looking for patterns, weaknesses, anything useful. Her team worked beside her, exhausted but determined. "Doctor, look at this," said one of her assistants. He was pointing to brain scan data from escaped captives. "The alien mind control device leaves a signature. But look at these 30% of scans. The pattern is different." Hannah leaned closer. Her heart started beating faster. These people weren't fully controlled. Exactly. The process failed. But the aliens don't know it failed. These people are pretending to be controlled while keeping their minds free. This was enormous. This changed everything. Hana immediately sent the information to every resistance cell she could contact. There were thousands of humans inside alien facilities who were still conscious, still aware, still capable of fighting back. One of those humans was June. For 3 days, he had shuffled through the alien facility with the other captives. He loaded cargo. He cleaned machines. He followed every order without question. But inside, his mind was racing. June had counted the guards. He had mapped the exits. He had identified which humans around him were truly controlled and which were pretending like him. There were more pretenders than he expected. At least 50 in his section alone. Late one night, when the facility was quieter, June made contact. He whispered to the woman working next to him while the alien guards were looking away. "Can you hear me?" The woman's eyes flickered. "Just for a second." Then she whispered back, "Yes, how many others?" "At least 30 in this building." "Maybe more." June felt hope for the first time since the attack. They had numbers. They had the element of surprise. Now they needed a plan. That same night, an engineer named Minho was being transported between alien facilities in a small shuttle. He had been captured in the first wave, processed, and marked as a skilled worker. The aliens were moving him to a ship in orbit where they needed someone who understood machinery, but Minho's processing had failed too. His mind was free, and he had been planning his escape for 3 days. The shuttle was automated but not well guarded. The aliens truly believed their mind control was perfect. When the shuttle passed through a damaged section of the city, Minho made his move. He grabbed a piece of broken metal from the floor and jammed it into the shuttle's door mechanism. Sparks flew. Alarms beeped. The shuttle lurched and started descending rapidly. Minho held on as the craft crashed into an abandoned building. He crawled from the wreckage, bloody but alive. Human resistance fighters found him within an hour. They brought him to their hidden base, and Minho told them everything he had seen. "Their ships have blind spots," he explained to the gathered fighters. "The sensors don't cover certain angles below the main hull, and their doors aren't as secure as they look. I watched the guards open them. It's just a frequency code, not anything complex." A resistance leader named Boram listened carefully. She was a former police officer who now led a group of 300 fighters in Seoul. "Can you reproduce the frequency?" "I think so." "Give me some basic equipment and a few hours." By morning, Minho had built a crude device that could open alien doors. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. The resistance now had a key. Yuna and her Special Forces team had been conducting hit-and-run attacks for 3 days. They would strike an alien patrol, kill the guards, free the captives, and disappear before reinforcements arrived. The aliens were confused. Their doctrine didn't include dealing with guerrilla warfare. One night, Yuna's team linked up with Boram's resistance group. Together they had military training and local knowledge. They planned their biggest operation yet, a raid on a processing center to free everyone inside. 50 fighters moved through the dark. Streets of Seoul, the city looked like a ghost town. Burned vehicles lined the roads. Buildings stood empty with broken windows. But in those buildings, hundreds of resistance members hid, watching, waiting. The processing center was a large alien structure in what used to be a shopping district. Guards patrolled the perimeter. Lights swept back and forth. Inside, thousands of humans worked under alien control. Yuna gave the signal. The attack began. Minho's device opened the side doors silently. Fighters poured inside. They moved quickly, taking down alien guards with knives and captured weapons. The aliens weren't prepared for combat inside their own facilities. They had never needed to be. Inside, June saw the attack beginning. He had been waiting for something like this. He turned to the other pretenders around him and shouted, "Now! Fight now!" 50 humans who the aliens thought were controlled suddenly became fighters. They grabbed tools and machinery and turned them into weapons. They attacked the guards from behind. They opened cages and freed others. The alien facility descended into chaos. The creatures tried to restore order, but they were overwhelmed. They had weapons, but they hesitated. They had never fought hand-to-hand before. They had never experienced an enemy who would throw themselves into danger without fear. Yuna fought her way to the control room. An alien operator tried to send a distress signal. She shot it before it could. Then she downloaded everything from their computer's maps, codes, ship locations, everything. "Everyone out," Borum shouted. 30 seconds? The fighters retreated, bringing freed captives with them. They vanished into the dark city streets just as alien reinforcements arrived. By the time the alien ships reached the facility, the attackers were gone, but they had freed 2,000 people. And they had stolen valuable intelligence. In his bunker, Colonel Day 1 received Yuna's data. He studied the alien ship positions and troop numbers. A grim smile crossed his face. "They spread themselves thin," he said to his staff. "They have ships in orbit, ships at processing centers, ships at landing zones. But look at this. They only have about 40 military vessels in our entire solar system. The rest are cargo ships and transports. 40 ships is still more than we can fight," an officer pointed out. "Maybe, but it's not as many as we feared. And look at this pattern. Every ship has the same design, the same weapons, the same weak points. They haven't changed their technology in thousands of years." Another officer leaned forward. "Why would they? If they've been conquering planets for that long, they probably haven't needed to innovate." "Exactly. They're stagnant. We're not." Day 1 pulled up another screen. "Our engineers have been studying the crashed alien craft. We're already learning how their power systems work. We're adapting." They're not. Around the world, similar conversations were happening. Humanity was analyzing, learning, and adapting faster than the aliens thought possible. Every captured piece of technology was reverse engineered. Every freed captive with information was debriefed. Every alien weakness was documented. The aliens had come to Earth expecting an easy harvest. They thought humans were primitive and divided. But now, 72 hours after the first attack, they were facing a unified resistance that grew stronger every day. In orbit, the alien commander reviewed reports from the surface. The resistance was larger than anticipated. The mind control had a higher failure rate than expected. Losses were mounting. For the first time in 10,000 years of conquest, the Valorian Dominion was facing a species that refused to break. The commander sent a message back to the homeworld. "Send reinforcements. This is taking longer than planned." But down on Earth, in 1,000 hidden bases and shelters, humanity was preparing for war. Not a war of defense anymore. A war of liberation. And soon, a war of revenge. The aliens had woken something they didn't understand. They had united a species that had spent its entire history fighting itself. Now all that violence, all that aggression, all that stubborn refusal to surrender had a single target. The harvest was over. The hunt had begun. 2 months had passed since the invasion began. The alien ships still hung in Earth's orbit like dark moons. Their processing facilities still covered major cities. But something had changed in those 60 days. The harvest had stopped growing. In fact, it was shrinking. Colonel Day 1 stood in the command center watching reports flow in from every continent. Resistance cells had freed over 1 million captives in the past month alone. Alien casualties were climbing. Supply lines were being disrupted. The invaders were starting to look frustrated. "They're bringing in reinforcements," reported an intelligence officer. 30 more ships just arrived in the outer system? Day 1 nodded. "Good, that means they're worried. Let them bring more ships. Every ship they send here is one they can't use somewhere else." In a hidden laboratory beneath the ruins of Tokyo, Dr. Hana made a breakthrough that would change everything. She had been working with a team of scientists from 12 different countries, studying captured alien technology. "The faster-than-light drive isn't as complex as we thought," she explained to a gathered video conference of world leaders. "It's actually quite simple. They use a field generator to fold space. The math is advanced, but the engineering is straightforward." A scientist named Hyun, who had been working alongside Hannah, added more. "The reason it seems simple is because they haven't updated the design in thousands of years. They have one standard model that every ship uses. Once we understood one, we understood them all." "How long until we can build our own?" asked Day-1. Hyun glanced at Hana. "We already have 3 prototypes. They're crude, but they work." The room fell silent. Humanity had gone from being unable to leave their own solar system efficiently to having faster-than-light travel in just 2 months. The aliens had given them the greatest gift possible, a common enemy and new technology to study, but they needed more than prototypes. They needed weapons. Real weapons that could fight alien warships in space. That mission fell to Captain Taesung. He had spent 2 months hiding in the asteroid belt with his small crew, watching and learning. They had salvaged parts from destroyed alien craft. They had intercepted communications. And they had developed a plan that was either brilliant or suicidal. Probably both. "We're going to capture an intact alien warship," Taesung announced to his crew of 20. His second officer stared at him. "Captain, that's impossible. Those ships have crews of hundreds. The big ones do. But look at this." Taesung pulled up a scan of a medium-sized alien vessel. "Patrol ships like this only have a crew of 40, and they follow predictable routes. We've been tracking this one for 3 weeks. It passes through the asteroid field every 72 hours, always alone. Even 40 aliens against 20 humans isn't good odds. It is if we board them by surprise. They don't expect anyone to attack them in space. They think we're primitives who can barely leave our own planet." Taesung smiled coldly. "Let's educate them." The attack came during the patrol ship's routine sweep through the asteroid belt. Taesung's team had hidden their small craft inside a hollowed-out asteroid. When the alien ship passed within range, they launched, the human shuttle attached to the alien hull like a parasite. Cutting torches burned through the outer plating. Within minutes, Taesung and his crew were inside. The aliens never knew what hit them. Humans poured through the corridors in tight formation, shooting anything that moved. The aliens tried to respond, but they were used to enemies who fought at a distance with rules and protocols. They had never experienced close-quarters combat against an enemy who didn't care about casualties. In 8 brutal minutes, the ship was theirs. 14 of Taesung's crew had died, but they had captured an intact alien warship complete with all its navigation data and communication systems. When Taesung plugged into the ship's computer, he found treasure beyond imagination. Star maps showing the locations of dozens of alien-controlled worlds, fleet positions throughout the sector, communication protocols, and most valuable of all, the location of the alien homeworld. He sent everything back to Earth on a tight beam transmission. This data would change the war, but the most shocking discovery was about the aliens themselves. Their empire, called the Valorian Dominion, only had 3,000 actual military ships spread across 47 star systems. The rest were cargo vessels, transports, and processing ships. They had conquered through fear and efficiency, not overwhelming force. They made species believe they were unstoppable. Once that belief shattered, their whole empire would crack. On Earth, Jun had become a legend among the resistance. He had been inside alien facilities for 2 months now, leading an underground network of free-minded humans who pretended to be controlled. His network had grown to over 10,000 people across 20 facilities. They didn't just sabotage anymore, They gathered intelligence. They stole supplies, they identified weaknesses, and they waited for the right moment to strike. That moment came when Colonel Day 1 sent out a coded message. Midnight Protocol. Execute in 72 hours. June passed the word through his network. In 3 days, every pretender in every facility would rise up at the exact same moment. They would seize control of alien installations from the inside while resistance forces attacked from outside. It was humanity's first real counteroffensive. And it would be devastating. Yuna spent those 3 days positioning her teams around key targets. She now commanded over 500 Special Forces operators from a dozen countries. They moved through the ruins of Seoul like ghosts, setting charges, establishing firing positions, preparing for the attack. She met with Borum, who now led a citizen militia of over 3,000 fighters. Together they would hit 6 processing centers simultaneously. We only get one shot at this, Yuna told her team. Once we attack, they'll know we're coordinated. They'll change their procedures. So we need to hit them so hard they can't recover. The night of the attack, Earth held its breath at exactly midnight in 12 time zones. 10,000 humans inside alien facilities suddenly stopped pretending. They grabbed weapons, attacked guards, and opened every door and cage they could find. Thousands of truly controlled humans were freed from their programming when resistance members destroyed the control devices. Outside, resistance forces struck at the same moment. Explosives planted over weeks detonated simultaneously. Alien ships on landing pads erupted in flames. Processing centers collapsed. Communication towers fell. Yuna led her team through the chaos, fighting room by room through a massive alien complex. The aliens tried to mount a defense, but they were overwhelmed. Every direction they turned, humans were attacking. June fought his way to the central control room of his facility. He had never fired a gun before the invasion. Now he moved like a soldier, fast and efficient. He shot 2 alien guards and reached the main computer. "Download everything," he shouted to a woman named Sierra, one of his network members who understood alien systems. "Every file, every record, everything." Sierra's fingers flew over the alien controls. "Got it. This has names, locations, ship movements, everything. Good, now set this place to explode. We're leaving." Around the world, the scene repeated. Facilities fell. Ships were destroyed. Aliens died by the thousands. The ones who survived retreated to their orbital vessels, shocked and confused. In the command center, Colonel Day 1 watched reports flood in. They had freed over 500,000 people in one night. They had captured dozens of alien craft. They had dealt the invaders their first major defeat, but the cost had been high. Over 10,000 resistance fighters had died. Entire city blocks were destroyed. The aliens would retaliate. "Let them come," Day 1 said quietly. "We're ready," and they were. Because while the ground assault was happening, something else was taking place in space. Admiral Kyung-suk stood on the bridge of Earth's first true warship. It wasn't as advanced as alien vessels, but it was built with one purpose: to kill. Around her flagship, 69 more human warships floated in space. They had been built in secret over 2 months, hidden in asteroid bases and dark side of the moon facilities. Built from human technology enhanced with alien designs. Built with every resource Earth could spare. Built for war. "Admiral, we have 70 ships ready for combat," reported her tactical officer. "All crews are trained. All weapons are armed." Kyung-suk looked at the holographic display showing alien positions throughout the solar system. The enemy had been here for 2 months, thinking humanity was beaten. They were about to learn differently. "Send a message to all ships," she ordered. "This is not a mission of defense. We're not protecting Earth anymore. We're going on the attack. We're going to hit them so hard they wish they'd never heard of our planet. Launch when ready." The human fleet burst from hiding like a pack of wolves. They didn't fly in neat formations like the aliens did. They scattered and moved unpredictably, using tactics the aliens had never seen before. The battle was vicious. Human ships were less advanced but more aggressive. They accepted damage that would make alien commanders retreat. They flew suicide runs to take out larger targets. They adapted mid-battle, trying new tactics when old ones failed. By dawn, 12 alien ships were destroyed. The rest retreated to high orbit, regrouping. Earth had lost 18 ships. But they had proven something crucial: they could fight in space. 6 months after the invasion began, the galaxy was watching Earth with shock and disbelief. The Valorian Dominion had controlled 47 star systems for 10,000 years. They had enslaved hundreds of species. They had never lost a war. Never even come close to losing. Until now, Una stood on the bridge of the warship, defiant, watching the tactical display. Her Special Forces team had been integrated into the new Space Marine Corps, and she now led boarding operations against alien vessels. In the past 4 months, her teams had captured 15 enemy ships. Today they were hunting in the outer solar system, looking for stragglers. "Contact," reported the sensor officer. 3 alien cargo ships heading for Jupiter orbit. Minimal escort. "Intercept course," Una ordered. "Launch boarding shuttles when we're in range. I want those ships intact." The attack was quick and brutal. Human warships closed on the alien convoy at speeds that made the enemy think they were attempting suicide runs. At the last moment, the human ships scattered and deployed boarding shuttles. Una led the assault on the largest cargo ship. Her team cut through the hull and poured inside. The alien crew tried to resist, but they were cargo handlers, not soldiers. Within 20 minutes, the ship was captured. What Una found in the cargo hold made her blood boil. Thousands of humans in stasis pods. These weren't prisoners from Earth. These people had been taken from another world, years ago. The aliens had been doing this to other species for centuries. "Get medical teams here immediately," she ordered, "and send a message to command. These people need help." Colonel Day 1 received the news with grim satisfaction. They had suspected the Valorians harvested other species too. Now they had proof. More importantly, they had survivors who could provide intelligence about other enslaved worlds. "This changes our strategy," he told his staff. "We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for everyone the Valorians have taken." The decision was made at the highest levels of Earth's unified government. They would take the fight to the enemy. Human task forces would strike Valorian outposts in neighboring star systems. They would free the enslaved. They would destroy the infrastructure of the Dominion. They would shatter the Empire that had terrorized the galaxy for 10 millennia. Captain Taesung commanded one of those task forces. His captured alien warship had been refitted with human weapons and systems. Around him, a fleet of 20 human vessels prepared to make their first jump to another star system. "Navigation, are we ready?" Taesung asked. "Course plotted for the Valorian outpost at Kepler 442, replied his navigator. "It's 3 jumps away. Total travel time 6 hours. All ships, form up. We jump in 5 minutes." Taesung felt the weight of the moment. Humans were about to leave their solar system not as explorers but as warriors. They were taking a war to an enemy that thought itself invincible. The jump to faster than light was violent and disorienting. Space twisted in ways that human brains weren't designed to process. But it worked. When they dropped back into normal space, they were light years from Earth. The Valorian outpost at Kepler 442 was a small installation orbiting a gas giant. It processed slaves taken from 3 nearby species and shipped them throughout the Dominion. The facility had minimal defenses. It had never needed more. Taesung's fleet appeared without warning. The Valorians had 12 ships at the station. All of them were caught completely by surprise. "All weapons, fire at will," Taesung commanded. The battle was one-sided. Human ships swarmed the station, destroying defensive platforms and crippling ships before they could raise shields. In 40 minutes, the outpost was destroyed and 8 alien ships were captured. But more importantly, 20,000 slaves were freed. 3 different species, all taken from their homes and processed for labor. When they saw humans cutting open their cages, they thought they were being transferred to new masters. When Taesung told them they were free, many of them didn't believe him at first. "We're not here to conquer," he explained through a translator device. "We're here to free you. The Valorians attacked our world. We fought back. Now we're destroying their empire so they can never do this again to anyone. The news spread through the freed slaves like fire. Humans, a species the Valorians had tried to enslave, were winning. They were fighting back. They were liberating others. Hope, the most dangerous thing in the galaxy, began to spread. On the Valorian homeworld, the High Council met in emergency session. For the first time in 4,000 years, they were afraid. The harvest operation at Sol 3 has become a disaster, reported the Supreme Harvester. We've lost over 200 ships. The humans have captured our technology and are using it against us. And now they're attacking our outposts in other systems. How is this possible? Demanded a council member. They're primitives. They couldn't even leave their own planet 6 months ago. They learn impossibly fast. They adapt in ways we've never seen. And they fight with a ferocity that defies logic. They sacrifice themselves willingly to destroy our ships. The council was silent. Sacrifice was a concept they barely understood. The Valorian Dominion had become soft over 10,000 years of easy conquest. Their military was more of a police force. They had forgotten how to fight real wars. What do you recommend? Asked the council leader. Total extermination. We assemble the full fleet. We glass their planet. We kill every human in the galaxy. If we don't, they will destroy us. The order went out. The Valorian Dominion began gathering the largest military fleet it had assembled in 4,000 years. 800 capital ships would converge on Earth. No more harvest operations. No more taking prisoners. Just complete destruction. It would take them 2 months to gather the fleet. 2 months for humanity to prepare. On Earth, intelligence intercepted the Valorian communications about the incoming fleet. The news was both terrifying and expected. 800 ships, Admiral Kyung-suk said, studying the projections. We have 200 at most, even if we rush construction. Then we need allies, said a new voice. Everyone turned to look at Ambassador Sujin. She had been appointed as Earth's first ambassador to other species after they started liberating slaves. In the past month, she had been in contact with representatives from 6 different species that had been freed from Valorian control. The species we've freed want to fight alongside us, Sujin continued. They've stolen ships. They've started their own rebellions. If we coordinate with them, we might have a chance. How many ships can they provide? Asked Day One. The Kelthans have 40 warships that were used to guard them. They captured them during their uprising. The Vrin have about 20. The others have smaller numbers, but every ship counts. Kyung-suk calculated quickly. That gives us maybe 300 ships total. Still less than half of what they're bringing. Quality over quantity, suggested Commander Woojin, who led humanity's experimental ghost fleet. We've been developing new tactics. Tactics the Valorians have never seen. Hit and run, ambush, guerrilla warfare in space. The Valorians fight in neat formations, added Taesung, who had returned from his raid. They follow predictable patterns. They've been doing it the same way for thousands of years. We don't have to match them ship for ship. We just have to disrupt their formations and create chaos. A plan began to form. It was risky, maybe impossible. But it was their only chance. 2 months passed in a frenzy of preparation. Earth built ships as fast as materials could be gathered. Freed species contributed vessels and crews. Training exercises were conducted. Tactics were shared. And most importantly, a united front was formed. When the Valorian fleet finally arrived at Earth's solar system, they expected to find a broken, desperate planet. Instead, they found an armada waiting for them. 312 ships from 7 different species hung in space around Earth, human vessels, mixed with alien craft in a formation. They made no sense to Valorian tactical doctrine. There was no command ship, no clear hierarchy, no logical pattern. The Valorian fleet commander, a new leader named Kelvoth, studied the defense force with contempt. They gathered their scraps to make a final stand. How pathetic. All ships advance in standard formation. We will crush them in one engagement. But as the Valorian fleet advanced, something unexpected happened. The defense force scattered. Ships broke in every direction, moving at speeds that seemed suicidal. Human vessels strained their reactors beyond safe limits. Freed slave ships performed maneuvers that would kill most. Valorian crews from the G-forces alone, the neat Valorian formation, tried to adjust, but they weren't built for this kind of chaos. Their ships had been designed for predictable combat. Their crews trained for organized battles. Commander Woodgen's Ghost Fleet struck first. 30 human ships equipped with stealth technology appeared from nowhere in the middle of the Valorian formation. They fired at point-blank range, destroying surprise targets before vanishing back into the dark. UNA's boarding teams were launched at the Valorian flagship. 50 shuttles, moving too fast and too erratically to shoot down easily. Most were destroyed, but 3 made it through. UNA led her team into the belly of the enemy command ship. It was a suicide mission. Everyone knew it, but they had a job to do: kill the enemy commander and disrupt their coordination. The fighting inside the flagship was brutal. Valorian guards tried to stop them. 2 years after the first alien ship appeared over Earth, Captain Tae-sung stood on the observation deck of Unity Station. The massive structure orbited what used to be the Valorian homeworld. Now it was called Liberation, renamed by the billions who had been freed from slavery. Below him, ships from 23 different species came and went peacefully. Human vessels shared docking space with Kelthan cruisers, Vrin transports, and ships from species he still couldn't pronounce the names of correctly. The Valorian Dominion was gone, shattered, destroyed not just by military defeat, but by the simple truth that their slaves no longer feared them. A young officer approached Tae-sung. His uniform was clean new. He hadn't fought in the war. He was part of the next generation, the ones who would inherit the galaxy humanity had helped create. Captain, incoming transmission from the Rim territories. It's marked urgent. Tae-sung followed him to the communication center. On the screen, a translated message played. It was from a species humanity had never encountered before, living in a distant part of the galaxy. We are the Korthan people. We have heard of what you did to the Valorians. We have heard that you free slaves and break empires. Please help us. The Domak Collective rules our world with cruelty. They take our children. They burn our cities when we resist. Please, if the stories about humanity are true, please help us. The message ended. The communication officer looked at Tae-sung. Should I forward this to command? Tae-sung thought about the past 2 years. He thought about everyone who had died. The billions who suffered. The terrible cost of war. Part of him wanted to say no, wanted humanity to rest, to heal, to stop fighting, but then he thought about what the galaxy would look like if nobody fought back against empires like the Valorians, if nobody helped species that couldn't help themselves. Yes, he said finally. Forward it to command. And prepare a response. Tell them we're on our way. In Seoul, June walked through the rebuilt streets of his neighborhood. The city looked different now. Some buildings were new, replacing the ones destroyed in the war. Others had been repaired but still showed scars from the fighting. He stopped at a memorial wall. Thousands of names were carved into the black stone. People who died during the invasion. People who died in the resistance. People who died in the final battle. June found the name he was looking for: Sira, the woman who had worked alongside him in the alien facility, who had downloaded critical intelligence, who had died when one of the processing centers collapsed. He placed flowers at the base of the wall, like he did every week. We won, he said quietly to the names on the stone. You didn't die for nothing. The galaxy is free because of what we did. A child tugged on his sleeve. She was maybe 7 years old, too young to remember the invasion clearly. Are you really June? The resistance fighter? I am. My teacher says you're a hero. But you saved thousands of people. June looked down at her. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a survivor who had gotten lucky. But he smiled anyway. I did what anyone would do. I fought for my freedom. And I helped others fight for theirs. The child's mother called her away. June watched them go, walking safely down a street that 2 years ago had been a battlefield. That's what they had fought for. Not glory. Not revenge. Just the simple right to walk down a street without fear. He could live with that. At the Xenological Institute in Tokyo, Dr. Hana gave a lecture to students from 3 different species. Humans, Kelthans, and Vrins sat together in the same classroom, learning about interspecies communication and cooperation. The Valorian Dominion lasted 10,000 years, Hana explained. They conquered through fear and efficiency. But they made a critical mistake. They never tried to understand the species they enslaved. They never built real relationships. They ruled through force alone. A Kelthan student raised a tentacle-like appendage. But humans defeated them with force too. What's the difference? The difference is what came after, Hannah replied. Yes, we fought. We had to. But once the fighting stopped, we didn't build an empire. We built alliances. We offered help, not demands. We shared technology instead of hoarding it. That's the difference between conquest and liberation. She pulled up a star map showing the current political landscape. 23 free species. No empires. No dominions. Just independent worlds choosing to work together for mutual benefit. This is what the galaxy can be. Not ruled by the strongest, but cooperated by the willing. At the military headquarters of the Allied Species Defense Pact, Admiral Kyung-suk reviewed readiness reports. The Defense Pact was a voluntary organization. Any species could join. Any species could leave. There was no central authority that could force anyone to do anything. It was messy. It was complicated. It was nothing like the clean hierarchy of the Valorian Dominion. It was also the strongest military force the galaxy had ever seen. We have reports of 17. More species requesting aid against oppressors, reported her intelligence officer. The news of our victory has spread. Everyone who lives under tyranny is rising up. Do we have the resources to help them all? If we coordinate with member species, yes. The Kelthans have offered to lead the operation in the southern sectors. The Vrin are already moving to help 3 species in their region. We just need to coordinate. Kyung-suk approved the operations. This was the new reality. Humanity wasn't conquering the galaxy. They were teaching it to free itself on a transport ship heading back to Earth. Former Special Forces operator Yuna watched the stars slide past the viewport. She had survived her wounds from the flagship raid, barely. The doctors said she would never fight again. Too much damage. Too many injuries. She was okay with that. She had done her part. Back on Earth, she had a new job waiting. Training the next generation of Special Forces operators. Teaching them not just how to fight, but when to fight, and more importantly, when to stop fighting. We're not warriors by nature, she had told her first class. We're people who became warriors because we had to. Now we need to learn how to be people again. But we also need to stay ready. Because there are species out there who can't protect themselves. And until everyone is free, our job isn't finished. A younger soldier had asked her, will we ever really be finished? There's always going to be someone who needs help. Yuna had thought about that. Maybe not. Maybe the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Maybe the strong always have a responsibility to protect the weak. But that's okay. As long as we remember that we're protectors, not conquerors. As long as we remember what it felt like when someone tried to enslave us. Ambassador Sujin stood before the Interspecies Council, a new organization she had helped create. Representatives from 40 different species filled the chamber. Some were freed slaves. Some were species that had never been conquered. Some were even former Valorian citizens who had renounced their empire's ways. We gather here not as conquerors and conquered, Sujin said. Not as masters and slaves. We gather as equals. As free beings who choose to work together. It was a nice sentiment. The reality was much more complicated. Species argued. Old grudges surfaced. Debates could last for weeks. Nothing was simple or clean, but it was real. It was genuine. And it was theirs on a small planet in the former Valorian territory. A child of the Vryn species looked up at the stars. Her grandmother sat beside her. "Grandmother, tell me again about the humans." The old Vryn clicked her mandibles in what passed for a smile among her people. The humans were a young species, barely able to leave their own world when the Valorians came. But when they were attacked, they didn't surrender. They fought back. And when they won their freedom, they didn't stop. They freed us. They freed everyone. Are they like gods? No, child. They're just people. People who decided that freedom was worth fighting for, worth dying for. They're not perfect. They argue among themselves. They make mistakes. But when they see injustice, they fight it. That's what makes them special. The child looked up at the stars, wondering which one was the human son. "I want to visit Earth someday." "You can." The humans welcome visitors. They want to learn from other species, and they want others to learn from them. That's what the new galaxy is about, learning, growing, together. Back on Unity Station, Taesung prepared his response to the Korthan people's plea for help. He knew what Earth's answer would be. It was always the same answer now. "We're coming." He thought about everything that had happened. The invasion, the war, the victory, the rebuilding. 2 years ago, humanity had been on the edge of extinction. Now they were leaders in a galactic community of free species. They hadn't asked for this role. They hadn't wanted it. But history had chosen them anyway. The alien attack had been meant to destroy humanity or enslave it. Instead, it had awakened something that the galaxy desperately needed. A species that refused to accept tyranny. A species that would fight not just for their own freedom, but for everyone's freedom. The Valorians had come to Earth looking for slaves. What they found was something far more dangerous. They found humanity, and humanity had shattered not just their empire, but the very idea that empires were inevitable, that the strong must dominate the weak. That freedom was a privilege instead of a right. Taesung looked out at the ships gathered around. Liberation, human, Kelthan, Vryn, Korthan, species from every corner of the galaxy.